speaking. My name's Stephen John. I live on, what road is it called now? Church Hollow Road there, you know, it's over there by Hidden Lake. And, been there a while actually. I want to welcome you warmly to this meeting. And this is not a town meeting, an annual meeting. This is an information meeting called by the school board of the school district of Marlboro. And then it'll be followed at 8 o'clock by a meeting chaired by convened by the alternate
structure.
Yep.
Until you retired from superintendent.
Yeah, I didn't try to focus on this too much. Stay over here. Anyway, yes, those of you, what she's referring to, if you don't know me, I was just retired as superintendent of schools for this SU, July 1, and I'm surviving very well, thank you. And one reason I'm here and going to have fun is because I haven't had too many meetings lately, so I'm ready for another one. Anyway, without further ado, we will pass it over here to, I think, Dan MacArthur, and for the board, for the school board.
First thing I want to do is correct Steve. He has been retired for almost 9 months now, and this meeting is convened by the study committee, which is studying the unification of 3 school districts, which would be Marlboro, Dover, and Wardsboro. So this meeting, the first meeting tonight, is initiated by that committee, and it's a formal meeting of that committee. You see many members, most of the members of the study committee are here tonight. We're made up equally of people from Marlboro, from Dover, and from Wardsboro. We've been working on this, and these people put in countless hours to try to think through what a merger might look like of the 3 school districts involved. The committee is on the question of the merger is officially neutral. This committee is neither saying you should merge, nor is it saying you should not merge. The committee is saying this is what it would look like if there were to be a merger, and that's what the goal of our work was over the last 9 months, trying to put together the most productive merger that we thought we could. So I'm going to ask people to think about your questions that you have, and ask questions that are relative to the merger of this merger committee. There's going to be a presentation of several different things that are going to talk about the results of our work on the merger committee, a couple of, as much information as possible about it. Please think about your questions, and if they're relative to the merger, then ask them of this merger committee. If you're wondering where Act 46 came from, as an example, or another example, what would happen to our high school kids if we don't have high school here, then I'm sorry, junior high kids, if we don't have junior high here. Sorry about that, I'm going to retire one day too. Then wait and ask them of the Alternative Structures Committee afterwards, because this committee has not been charged with figuring out where Act 46 came from, as an example. Having said all of that, I think we're ready to go ahead, and I want to say thanks so much to the members of this committee for putting in their time and being.
I think we should introduce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some introductions here. Laura, would you start?
Laura Sibili from Dover.
Randy Capitani from Dover.
Lucy Gratwick from Marlboro.
Dwight Boron, Wardsboro.
Dan MacArthur, Marlboro.
Rich Warner from Dover.
And Chip Vickery from Dover.
Selena Romo from Marlboro.
I do think we should give these folks a round of applause. Now, I do have a suggestion, which may sound a little pedantic and pedagogic, and since I'm a retired teacher and all that, but here's my suggestion. In order to move the meeting along and make sure that the questions are pretty articulate and do not ramble, if you would be so kind as to jot down in your phone or whatever your questions
Or paper.
As this presentation is made. I think that really helps, because then if you hear your question being asked, you don't need to repeat it, and you may be able to clarify. Your question may be a little bit more focused on extending the understanding. because information is very important to make this kind of decision. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Anyone else need a writing? Anyone else need a pen? I have extra pens if you need another pen. Thank you all for writing these down. This actually is very, very helpful because from the last 4 meetings that we've had, we have documented all of these questions and have posted them on the blog site. I've also printed them out and put them in this binder here if anyone wants to take a look at them. I'll stick it in the back of the room for later on. Actually, no, I won't. I'll put it in the music room next to tea and cookies. So you can check out the questions. The articles of agreement are also in here. So that is the process for that, which was very helpful to us. So usually Felicity does this section of the meeting, but I'm going to wing it. Felicity Rattay has been our facilitator, but she's on her way to Egypt, so we'll let her off the hook tonight. So we've already introduced ourselves. I also just kind of wanted to go over a little bit of our process here and how we came here tonight. To feed off of Dan a little bit, this has been pretty much a 2-year process. Act 46 passed in the spring of 2015, and it started off with a lot of meetings at the WCSU level. And Rich is the chair of our Supervisory Union Board. We all are, Dan and I are members, as well as Doug. There's representatives from Newfane, Jamaica, our whole Supervisory Union. And we started having conversations about what to do with this new law. And from there, we chose to have several conversations. I personally went to towns like Dummerston and Putney and Guilford and Brattleboro, and Lauren reached out to members of communities in Halifax and Reedsboro, and we just had lots and lots of dialogue about our schools and our philosophies and how to make this work for us, really, is what the big question was for all of us. So that was just a little bit of our process. And then from here, we're going to go through, there's like 3 sections that we're tackling tonight. One of the goals of Act 46 is to create more educational opportunities, so we're going to focus on that, and then we're going to do a little question writing. We'll give you a few minutes to write down your questions around that, and then we'll do a little bit about the money stuff, the nitty-gritty about the money, another question writing, and then the process. What's our timeline? Where do we go from here? And then we'll just keep on answering questions until it's 8 o'clock, and we'll go from there. So this meeting is a chance to understand what it means if you vote yes and what it means if you vote no. This meeting is also a chance to understand a little bit more about what the work that we have done, as well as trying to answer some questions that you might have. And so our goal for this meeting is to gain an understanding of what the Articles of Agreement lay out for us. So the Articles of Agreement aren't, they basically are the foundation. Randy actually had a really good explanation of this. It's kind of like a real estate sale backwards. So we have been charged with like creating the foundation work for what a merger would look like, and then the new board that would come to be after town meeting, if this vote goes through, would then be the one that would be creating the policies and the procedures to have the operating new unified school district. So this is a little bit of an opportunity to understand what these articles are laying out for us. And we have one more meeting left after tonight. The next meeting will be in Dover on the 27th of February, the Dover Town Hall. If you can't get enough of these, you can come to one more. And yeah, so let's see, we've already met us. So this is kind of the guiding vision of what we did. So we've been meeting since July, and we decided that we needed a vision statement to kind of guide us through this process of creating these articles, of creating some sort of agreement. So this was our vision statement. So with respect of each town's local identity, we envision a unified school district that will represent how the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. By sharing resources and talents, we believe this alliance can provide students and teachers access to increased educational opportunities and improved services. So there was a lot of work that went into this. I apologize for all of you who are here once already, that you're just getting the same information twice. Kind of the goal of these meetings was to have the same information laid out to everybody. So there will be more opportunity for more Q&A later on, so bear with me. So there was a lot of research that went into this. We had a, John Everett was our consultant that we hired to work with us. He was the former director, head of the Vermont School Boards Association, so he had a lot of knowledge about what we were trying to do, and as well as connection with the Agency of Education, so we were able to bounce a lot of questions off of him and get some pretty good results. And really, we followed, we really wanted to keep to our vision statement and keep the question of our students at the forefront of all of this. And I have to say, throughout this entire process, not just working with all of these folks, but with communicating with all of the various communities, there is one thing that I have walked away with all of this from, is that every community loves their school. And there is a huge amount of respect that I have for these folks and their schools and their communities, because they are just as committed as we are in Marlboro to their schools. So thank you. And there is a lot of places you can go and look for some more information. The big easy one is our blog site. We have a lot of, everything is on there. All of the questions, answers, our articles of agreement, all of the videos from BCTV are on there. If you want some endless hours of watching lots of BCTV clips, there you go. Also, there is a button on there to ask questions. So if you leave here tonight and you're going, oh, I wish I asked that question, go to the blog spot, hit the big green button, ask your question, and one of us will answer you. So from here, we are going to go and turn the floor over to Dwight, and he can talk about some of the educational opportunities there.
Educational opportunities, I think it's important to understand that these are really potential opportunities. As Selena mentioned, the board here, we designed basically a template for the next, or the committee for the next board coming in, to put into action those opportunities that are available to them. And it's something that the committee took very seriously. The first article in the Articles Agreement basically touches on that. I'll paraphrase it. It just basically says that the incoming board will do everything in their power to ensure that all opportunities are available throughout the three schools, if it is the three schools that are involved. So we're giving them the task to make sure that things like technology or different types of schooling that were like music or art or foreign language, those kinds of things are available to them. But it really is a task for the next board coming in to fulfill that vision, if you will, that we have. And what are some of the things that are possible? Establishing elementary school choice, that's in the articles. It allows for students to transfer between different schools in the district, but it also gives the school board some leeway to restrict some of that movement for different reasons. So we had to be a little more lenient on that. Organized sharing of programs, as I just mentioned, doing their best to ensure that programs that are available at one school are also available at the other, whether it be, as I mentioned, foreign language. It's always an example that we like to use. The single teacher agreement. So what that would mean was it would be that the district, all teachers would work directly for the district, not for the individual schools. So that gives us some leeway in moving teachers between schools, and also maybe some better hiring power. Retaining and attracting quality teachers, same thing. As I mentioned, the ability to have teachers come in and just being hired by one organization or one district could be possibly an opportunity to attract more quality teachers. Maintaining secondary choice. One of the reasons that we are merging together is because the three schools do have secondary choice for the high school. Obviously, you guys in Marlboro are a little bit different. In Dover and Wardsboro, we're K through 6. Obviously, you guys are K through 8. So We want to maintain the secondary choice and work on giving students in those grades the most opportunities that they can have. Shared substitute teacher pool, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, being able to move substitutes within the district. And special education costs. One of the strains on smaller schools, Wardsboro, for instance, is special education costs can put a real a strain on the budget. So having a larger district creates an opportunity to spread those costs over the whole district. Consequences. What are some of the consequences of unification? Potential inequalities of access due to transportation. This is something that the committee spent a lot of time on. And again, this is something that the next board coming in, if the merger goes through, will have to deal with, and trying to figure out the best way to have students move from school to school if that's something they wanted to do. If you have the means to do it, that might be some inequality there. If you can have the means to send your children to different schools, that could create some inequality there. Obviously, you guys are well aware of the closure of Marlboro Junior High. The 7th and 8th grade would be closed if the merger goes through. Potential shift in choice for Dover tuition payments. Essentially what that means is that the entire district would decide what the contribution would be for middle and high school students going if they choose to go to a school other than a public school. That's what that means. That's it. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that it?
No, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
So from here, I'm just going to ask folks if you have any questions, you just want to quickly jot them down, and then I can run around and collect them, or you can hold on to them however you feel like you want to hold on to your question. I will collect everything at the end. One of the things I just want to throw out here about this is that when, in all the conversations before this study committee, we had a small group of folks in Marlboro that were charged with doing some diving into some research around Act 46 before we chose to join a study committee. Lauren was on it, Doug was on it, who else was in here? Suzanne Whitehouse, where are you? Oh, there you are. Gussie was there, Carol Ann was there. So we basically, we put together a survey. We were asking townsfolk, what are some things that the town of Marlboro specifically wants to see for our school, for our future, things that we really value, things we want to hold on to, which is what guided us to this position with the study committee. One was maintaining high school choice, which is what brought us to this, and one was also voice, having a lot of representation and voice. And when we were talking with the, Brattleboro districts and so forth, we would have one voice on a joint board versus equal representation of 3 voices on this committee. And of course the 7th and 8th grade was a hard thing. That was something that the survey results came back saying that people really valued, but they also valued looking at how to expand opportunities for those 7th and 8th grade students, which is what led us to here, because there wasn't a whole lot of other options as far as either maintaining and losing high school choice with joining with Brattleboro District. And when we spoke with, or tried to, Lauren can speak to this a little bit more probably in the next section, but the Halifax, Wardsboro, Stamford committee is doing something different. I'll leave it at that. So I'll give you folks all like 5 minutes to jot down a couple of questions.
Would you mind if people ask their questions?
They will.
They will. I will.
Oh,
yeah. But I need everything written down. Basically,
That makes total sense.
Basically, the state asks us to we need to prove to the state that we are having these outreach committee meetings and that we are doing all of this work. So if we have written documentation of all of your questions, we can be like, hey, look at this. AOE, we did our work, which is why I'm asking you.
So you're saying that we can ask the study group a question that we should also write down?
Yes,
when we're
please.
asking? Right, okay.
Right on. Thank you, Bob.
Preparation for class.
Yeah. Steven's going to be grading all of you. He's coming out of retirement.
Grammar counts, right, Steve?
questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to pass a question forward? Okay, so from here, I'm just gonna start reading a few of these off, and then our committee
Can
can.
the people in the audience ask their questions? It's really critical to us that the people in the
They're going to
audience.
get to ask the question.
Well, why is she reading them?
You're reading them or they're going to?
They've been doing it this way at
Well, I
every
was going
meeting.
to read
This is
them
their,
because
this is their
that's their
way.
question.
Well, it would be great if they could ask the question.
Better TV. But we do want to get them in the end. Make sure we get your question.
Right.
That's the question. We don't have anybody taking notes here. That's one thing.
Right, yeah, we have no note takers. So we
And
ask
Selena,
our
maybe
question.
you should mention that if you don't get to all the questions, you will post the answers on the blog. 'cause
Oh,
you
yeah,
only have
absolutely.
An hour left, and
Because
you've
we
got a lot
have
of.
55 minutes here and we have some time to get, we don't have a whole lot of time to get through things. If we don't have, you know, everyone's questions answered, again, these all will be typed up, these all will be posted on the blog site, and you can look through there at your leisure.
Okay, so did you have in mind that people ask the questions in each of these sections, or do we wait till the end?
Well, I was gonna do it in sections. I was
Okay,
gonna
great.
do a little like 5-10 minute Q&A after each section.
Okay.
And as we did the last meeting, Felicity read the questions, but apparently that's really bad TV, so.
Yeah, we want to hear. Thank you. It's good to hear from you.
So, who wants to go first?
All right, John?
Hi, Jonathan Morse. I had several questions. One was, how did you come up with this vision statement? It seems like a fairly closed statement to me. Second, what happens if one town votes no and the two towns vote yes? And the third question is, does Dover and Wardsboro have a union for their teachers?
So,
You want to take that, or?
your middle question will be answered later, because that's another section that we're
Okay.
gonna go through. Dover and Wardsboro do not currently have a union contract for their teachers.
Dover and Wardsboro both
Oh,
have
they do,
union contracts. However,
but it's,
Dover's is a singular contract,
Yeah.
was with Dover, and Wardsboro's part of the Windham Central master agreement.
Okay, so the follow-up to that would be, what would be, if Marlboro and the other two towns join, would the teachers here be required to join the union?
No, what would happen is the staff would wind up having to decide whether they wanted to be union or not. And
In
then,
each school?
no, there's no longer separate schools. It's one school district operating out of 3 buildings.
Right.
So the 3, and then the mission statement, you want to answer that one?
the vision statement.
Vision statement,
We
yeah.
collectively worked on it together, and we thought that it was something that guided us. We felt it was a valuable tool, and
Right, next question. Live question back there, yes. Go ahead and introduce yourself, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It has to do with what we're looking at here, of sharing programs, sharing special ed costs, all that. Isn't this what the supervisory union is? I mean, you know, Marlboro and a lot of schools joined a supervisory union to kind of pool their efforts. Like, I just don't understand. It seemed like that's what the supervisory union was kind of supposed to be doing, the idea of a supervisory union. Many small schools kind of sharing administration and stuff. So why wasn't that a starting point? Thank you.
So Act 46 has a whole bunch of different tiers, and one of them is a supervisory district, which would include everything K through 12 being run by the supervisory union. We looked at that option, and because Windham Central is such a diverse group, we have a non-operating school, we have 2 K6s, we have a K8, and we have 5 elementary schools that all feed into the Leland and Gray district. We did look at that option in the first year of our studies as Windham Central, and we chose not to move down that path because of all the different operating structures and to respect the uniqueness of all the different schools. We felt this was the best path to move forward. Brattleboro, most of the Brattleboro towns, but Vernon are all K-8s or K-6s that feed into the Union High School, and they were looking at a supervisory district too, and that even fell apart. But that was the ultimate goal. That was the preferred structure, would have been to do a K through 12 whole district or district-wide.
Take front first, yeah, go ahead.
Assuming that this merger goes through, Windham Central would go away, right? Windham Central Supervisory Union?
No,
No.
no.
So, my question is, where does the administrative staff for this district get housed? How does that happen? Is there a superintendent for these 3 schools? Is there central record keeping or central finances?
Yeah, there would still be, the supervisory union still exists, and they'll still do their services, but instead of doing it for 3 different towns and 3 different schools, it would be 1 school district. So it would also save some effort in duplication that happens at Windham Central. So they would still be the supervisory. Remember, the superintendent was supervising the different buildings, and that was the states looking after all the individual schools.
So things in Townsend will remain relatively the same?
Things in where?
Townsend with the supervisory district office?
It'll change a little bit, because if the Leland and Gray side votes, there's no longer those 5 elementary schools, and the Leland and Gray group is separate. It'd be 1 bigger group. So there'd actually be less groups for the supervisory union, the superintendent to oversee.
And Julia, there is a section of information coming up on procedure, and I think we get more into that at that point. So you'll get some information. We could do follow-up questions after that, perhaps.
Yeah, I haven't seen the next one, so I can't censor you on that. There's a question in the back, yes. Yep, go ahead.
If I understand correctly, you all are you're a recommending committee or a recommending organization, and if the merger goes through, a school board will be created.
Yeah, part of we're not a recommending. We were charged with specifically to look at a unification of these 3 schools. The committee isn't saying that you should vote for it or you shouldn't vote for it. We're presenting it to you, for you to decide. We're trying to give you the information to help you to decide.
Sorry, I misspoke. I mean that you are creating recommendations for the future school board.
We're creating a framework.
Okay.
And then what happens is on the ballot, you're going to have a question. Do you want to unify? And we'll talk about that.
Assuming.
And then the second question, if you let me finish, the second question on the ballot is, who do do you want to vote for these people to be on the new district board? Those people will be the ones that do what your school board does now. But instead of just being for Marlboro, looking after the Marlboro building, there'll be 3 from each town that will look after this whole new district.
And I'm just trying to understand if the group that is formed, if the merger goes through, that's a group that's looking after all 3 towns, are there certain recommendations that they have to follow from your work?
Yes, that's the framework in the articles.
And how closely do they have to follow your recommendations, or can they throw them out and do what they want?
No, they need to follow the recommendations, and actually there's a couple things that are in, that when you vote, it's not just a yes or no, do you want to create a district? It's a fairly long, there's several sentences, and that's because we wanted things in there that were voted on, because those can't be changed without a vote of the whole district, everybody to vote on that. So the framework is pretty much there, but we also didn't want to be so specific, and the example I've been using is, if we said every school shall have an hour of Spanish every day, then that board would be tied to that. And what if in 10 years Spanish is no longer spoken and we speak Hindu or something, just whatever.
So you're going to give this group that language that we're going to be voting on?
It's the articles that, the ballot is available and is online.
There's a sample ballot right now, sort of outside the town office, that you can read it. It is fairly lengthy. But also, the Articles of Agreement are next to tea and cookies in there if you want to take a look at those, and they're also on the blog site if you want to take a look in there.
All All right.
So I think we should,
Nope. We're interested in moving on unless,
Yeah,
think of
I'm
it in
sorry.
the interest of time. That's why we're trying to have these questions written down. But I will try to move things along as best we can to get all your questions in.
Yeah.
You want to do the next section?
yeah, so
we
I just want to move
answer
on to the
questions?
next section. This is for folks who weren't here before, so they're getting all the information that everyone did before. And I'm going to turn the stage over to Randy.
Somehow I got the opportunity to talk about taxes. Everybody's favorite thing, right? So, I like to call this the carrot and stick part of the presentation, because the state has given every town and every school district in the state a carrot. And that carrot is, whether you like them or not, artificially induced tax reductions. The reason I say artificially induced is because if you vote for this, all the members of the new district will get these tax reductions based on whatever the new tax rate is that the district sets once in 2019 the budgets are approved and the numbers are out there. Then you will see, let's say for example, it's a $2 tax rate, just to give you an example. There will be 8 cents taken off of it, so the new district's first year tax rate will be $1.92. And then in year 2 it will go up or reduced by 2 cents. It'll be a 6 cent reduction, 4 cent, 2 cent, and then it'll level out. So that's one of the carrots that the state is giving us should we decide to vote for this. One of the other carrots is the towns get to continue with their small school grants. Wardsboro currently gets $83,595. Marlboro gets $116,000 and change. Dover gets $61,000. If you do not vote for this, those go away. Now there is some consideration that maybe they will, maybe they won't. But our understanding is, and the way we've been operating is, you can just assume that they're going to go away. The other thing that will go, so there's another incentive to vote for this, which is to keep those small school grants. How that affects you on your own personal property taxes, maybe 20 bucks, maybe 100 bucks, maybe a few $100. Depends on the value of your property, what your tax rate is, that sort of thing. I can't tell you individually how much it will cost you to vote yea or nay, or how much it will save you to vote yea. But those are the things you would be threatening to lose should you not vote for this. The financial assistance for the hold harmless consideration. That's essentially, maybe you've heard phantom students. That was something that was put in place 20 years ago when Act 60 first came out to help small schools like we all have here compensate for a declining student population. Originally it was supposed to be temporary, it's become law. As Rich likes to say, the big schools don't like it because the big schools think it's taking money out of their pockets. So the state's going to make that go away. Again, should the district be approved, should the new district form after town meeting this year, those hold harmless calculations will continue. There's a time frame for that, right, Rich?
Yeah,
Do we know how long that is?
3 years.
3 years. So that'll stay for 3 years. After 3 years, we're all on our own anyway. Now we're going to get it back because I don't have this committed memory.
Sorry.
How's there going to be a merger and a transition? So, Rich talked a little bit and Selena talked a little bit about the new school board that you would be voting for along with voting for your current school board. And there will be a 2-year transition. That board is going to need money to operate, to hire, and by letterhead or by whatever. So there will be up to a $150,000 grant to help with the cost of the transition to the new school district. So that money won't come out of the local towns and taxpayers' pockets, at least not directly. Right? We all pay. Everybody here a property owner, right? So we're all paying taxes, so we know how that goes. But at least it'll be indirect. It'll be spread out across the whole state, so it won't be paid directly by the towns. The standard accounting methods would allow direct financial comparisons. And I think that sort of gets to the question we were talking here earlier about what happens with the supervisory unit and all the small districts versus a couple of larger districts. And that was one of the things the state really tried to encourage with Act 46 was greater transparency and greater ease of understanding of numbers. So for example, there is a supervisory union. How many of you know how much money the supervisory union spends? You don't see it on your town report. Well, maybe you do. I shouldn't say that. We don't in Dover necessarily, but maybe you guys do. This way, you would have a greater understanding of how much money is being spread across the whole district. And there would be also a unified audit for the three towns, well, for the one district instead of 3 audits for the 3 town districts that we have now. So there's some cost savings there. And then there would be shared contracts for 3 schools. In theory, there should be cost savings there because that was one of the thinkings behind Act 46, that essentially you're getting greater buying power, if you will, because you're working with larger numbers and can have more leverage with vendors and that sort of thing. So, consequences of not approving this.
No, it's consequences of unifying that are not necessary.
I'm sorry, consequences of unifying, but that don't necessarily meet the Act 46 guidelines. Well, again, talking about budgets, there is difficulty in understanding larger unified budgets because it won't just be our town, it'll be our towns. And it won't be how much money are we spending on our school, it'll be how much money is the district spending for 3 schools. So there could be some problems understanding that. This is a big one, and we identified this and we went around and around about this one. There is no easy answer to this one. The need to find new ways to engage citizens in school budget discussions. You won't sit down at your town meeting and talk about your school budget under this new scenario. You would vote the first year on a budget by Australian ballot. After that, the voters of the district may decide to go back to an open floor vote meeting, but it still wouldn't be held in 3 places at the same time. It would have to be one meeting at one location, would probably be moved from town to town from year to year, but you would have another meeting you would have to go to. Obviously, you guys all like to go to meetings. You're here, right? So anyway, so that's a big one because it would change how you would discuss and how you would vote on your school district's budget. And there's just no getting around that. That's what bigger districts do now. The location of a unified board meeting could hinder participation. That's another problem that would arise from this. For example, if there was a unified district, the board might meet first meeting of the month here, second meeting of the month might be in Dover, third meeting of the month might be in Wardsboro. You guys have an issue you want to go to, you want to go all the way to Wardsboro? That's a problem. Now, it was brought up at the Wardsboro meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. Could some of this be done digitally, electronically? Yes. In theory, you could have a Skype session. People could sign on or some other sort of digital video transmission, and you could sit in your living room and watch a school board meeting, in case you want to do that. But we don't know how that would all play out. But so these are some of the negatives, some consequences that would not align with Act 46. And the reason it's written like that was the language we were asked to work with in terms of whether the goals and the actions that this group took would either align with Act 46 or would not align with Act 46. Pros and cons, if you will. So, anything else?
Thank you. Now it's question writing time. I have more paper if anyone needs more paper. What? You want?
Just one comment on phantom students too. Dover and Marlboro really bucked the statewide trend. Marlboro has no phantom students because your enrollment stayed pretty steady. Dover, our actually enrollment went up 10 students over the last year. Wardsboro does though have quite a few phantom students. I think it's 6 or 8. 6? So 6 phantom students is somewhere around $60,000 to $75,000 extra money that comes in. That is kind of that carrot that Randy was talking about.
Questions I've written down, just help collect here.
Okay. White hat, red there. Yeah, there it is yourself.
I'm Polly Morrill, I live on Higley Hill Road. I don't mean to be facetious, perhaps it's the political climate that we're all functioning in right now, but I find myself being really suspicious in the sense that both the process and the language is confusing to me. I only have a master's degree, I don't have a PhD, so perhaps that's a problem. But when I hear the consequences of unification not aligned, what does that mean? So, I guess it's not really a question, it's more an observation.
Not aligned with Act 46.
Not aligned with Act 46, yeah. Pros and cons would be a lot more effective communication.
That was specifically requested of us by the state.
No, I understand, I'm just expressing my frustration.
Polly, I hear you. I think
We got it too.
a lot of this feeling that I personally am having is with the interesting situation that is happening and then continuously unfolding every day in Washington, D.C. I think that anxiety levels are pretty high, and us trying to grapple with this on the local level is exceptionally important, but also needing to remind ourselves that this is where we need to engage and be. And I think that's really important. So yes, we have to jump through all the hoops that they say that we have to, but.
You know, as an aside to that, one of the things the committee felt really strongly on was that no school should be closed, no building should be closed unless the town in which the building is in actually votes to allow it to be closed. And we got pushback from the state on that. And one of the pushback was, do you want to tie the hands of the new board? And we said, yes, we do, because we felt that was very important. They wanted to put a limitation on it. Like, no school can close in the first 5 years unless the town votes, or 3 years. And that's one of the things that we as a committee really said, no, this is very important. If you want this to pass, this has to stay in there. So we did stand up to the state on several things that we felt were really important. But again, as you all know, in politics, you got to pick your battle, and you got to know when it's worthwhile to fall on the axe or the sword, and when it isn't. And that was one of the things that in Dover, it actually shows on the ballot that no school can close. And the state even pushed back on that again too, but we felt that was very important.
It says the same thing on all three.
It does.
Yeah, so all three ballots have that articulated, and that obviously the state can say what they want, but local town meetings still have authority over articles. Okay, let's go back into that.
I'm Judy Robinson from South Road. So I wanted to echo what Selena was saying, and sort of what I was hearing over here too about what a great opportunity it is to be with the town and to be able to share the vision that we want. I'm really honored that you guys had a role to play to fulfill this, and that's what you're doing. And this is an information meeting, but it doesn't mean we can't say what we really feel, because they're just presenting the facts. So I just really value that. I have 2 students in the school who are very different. One is a special education student, and the other is not. They're very, very different, very close, but very different. And so I can understand and have heard a lot of other parents talking about, wanting the school to improve, wanting this, and then wanting that. For one kid and then another. The junior high worked for one kid and then it didn't work for another. And I want to work with the town to solve some of these problems that we all experience in our own lives on this really granular local level. And I personally want to keep it local. I really don't know that those problems are going to be solved by Act 46 in this consolidation, where we just heard the consequences are we get further and further away from being able to make the impact. So my specific thing is just an interest in why sharing special education costs comes in under the slide of educational opportunities and not under the slide of financial implications. Because to me, if that means that we are committed to keeping the special education paraprofessionals who are there, I think they're there because it is in the students, in federal statute, they are allowed to have an individual education plan, and the accommodation for that child is a special education paraprofessional to be with them. Then I think there are other classrooms that have a bunch of kids with IEPs, but they do not have the federally acknowledged accommodation of a person in the classroom. So then we have paraprofessionals, not special education paraprofessionals, but paraprofessionals. Does adding this shared cost mean that we are committed to keeping all those people? Or we want to save money by getting rid of them? Because that's what Brattleboro did. Montpelier told them, costs are too high, cut those paraprofessionals, and they did. And we didn't move to Brattleboro in 2008. We moved here. We had a contract in a house in Brattleboro, and we found out they were going to do that. And we said, we're not moving there, we're moving to Marlboro. And so if that's what this is really about, is to cut those people out of the classrooms and to leave the teachers with 5 kids with IEPs and nobody but you to teach 17 children, then let's own that. Let's talk about that. That is really serious for us to do, because we cannot erase diagnoses because of what the legislature wants us to do. Those kids are still going to be in the classroom, and they're still going to be in a complex world where kids at varying degrees. So I want that really owned, if that's what we're trying to do, is reduce special education costs, because I grant you they're high. I grant you the numbers are going up. But it's not because we're soft and liberal. It's because the kids actually need these services.
Thank you. I just want to appeal to all of you that the only time for about 3 questions is we have to speak at such great length, which is one of the purposes of writing down the question. But I also recognize there's a very important element of this information meetings that is an issue of debate, hearing each other's opinions. And so that is but I think the factual aspects of your question should be answered.
Laura had her hand up.
So, and I'll let others maybe add more detail. There she is. But one of the, if this merger goes through, what you're doing is creating one district, one board, one budget. Okay, so if you change nothing, if we keep all of the special education services that are intact right now for every student in this new single school district, you're spreading that cost out over a wider area. That can impact your tax rate. So, just education finance is not so, black and white, like we're just trying to save money by pulling something away, just the act of,
It's actually also, prior to Act 46, there was a separate law that came through that required supervisory unions and districts to share special education costs. And the school board at Marlboro actually went to Windham Central Supervisory Union 3 years ago, something like that, and actually said we wanted to share special ed costs throughout the entire supervisory union, because small schools such as ours, such as Wardsboro, they're all, every time, every year there's new things that happen, and our special ed budgets do this. So if we're allowed to spread them out over, a larger pool of people, then those waves become smaller. And also for me personally, one of the benefits that I saw to having it shared throughout multiple schools is that you can't tell anymore who the kid is. And I think that is really important, particularly in small schools, because if you see spikes in special ed, you can be like, oh, I bet it's that kid. Which I don't think anyone would do, but it's out there and it's real. And I think that it protects privacy for families, which I think is really, really important in special ed.
Other questions? We'll take Dave first.
I'm confused. So let's say, for example, that in Marlboro, we have in the junior high, I'm making this up, there are 3 paraprofessionals because of the kids' IEPs require that. But over in Dover, or let's say it's the 6th grade, over in Dover, they might have the special ed teacher who is obviously on a different pay scale. If there's a unified board, how will determination be made about what school or what kids deserve or get certain services as opposed to other kids? So if Marlboro has let's say it has a more lenient, if that's the right word, a more progressive, if that's the right word, view of the role of a paraprofessional with special ed kids that Dover doesn't share, how does that work?
So possibly the Marlboro members of the single school district for all of our kids, which now are Dover and Marlboro and Wardsboro, maybe the Marlboro contingency will convince us that we need more lenient special education. You know, I mean,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa. But it's those are decisions that will be made by everyone for everyone, as opposed to me for my town. It'll be me and my colleagues for all of our kids.
But also
I
on
would
a,
say too that like as a board, we don't necessarily dictate IEPs or who has what. That's not the board's business. That's not our deal. That is.
the IEP, everybody, with special ed, there's an IEP. That's not, the boards have nothing to do with that. That's done by your educational professionals. The administrator in the building, Abby Dillon at the central office, the teachers, and the parent. And they come up with an IEP, and if the IEP says the student needs these accommodations, the student gets those accommodations. The board can't say yes or no. I mean, that's nothing.
The point is when there isn't that special accommodation in there, just to be really clear, I'm going to say 30 seconds. It's that you get a paraprofessional. You don't get a special education, and that's up to the school to decide. But you're right. That's just people. That's not in the IEPs. That's just helpful.
If somebody else wants to speak to the legal situation about his, I'd love to hear it.
You probably can speak to it better than anybody.
Please.
In a broader picture about this issue, which would be if one town wanted to advocate for a certain thing as part of the greater district, there is a provision in the Articles of Agreement that would allow for citizen advisory groups to be formed for individual towns. So, for example, Marlboro, besides having its 3 board members who would also advocate for the school, could, working with the new board, have a parent advocacy group that could advocate for things like playground improvements or new volleyball nets for the gym or whatever. So there are opportunities within the Articles of Agreement for parent involvement. In fact, we would certainly encourage that. And as Rich likes to say, this new board isn't going to be some ominous dark group that comes down from on high, from Montpelier. It's going to be you folks. It's going to be these folks sitting here. It's going to be the same people. It's just, it's going to be a little more of the same people because you're going to have neighbors from neighboring towns, not just neighbors from the same town. And that's really the way you have to look at it.
Paul?
I'm Paul Butler. I live on Lower Dover Road. I just have sort of a follow-up question. I'm also someone who is very skeptical of Act 46. I reckon we've had something like 240 years of taking responsibility locally for education, and I think we've had effective outcomes. I was disappointed with the legislature. I thought there were other ways to do it. However, I was very impressed in the meetings I attended and what I followed online about the work of all of you and your colleagues who aren't here. I was very impressed with Selena and Dan and Lucy and their ability to articulate our concerns from our town and also the collective set of articles you came up with. I think it's reassuring, but could you confirm, I have 2 questions really. Could you confirm first that each town has 3 people that get elected to the board? Because I think our 3 were very effective. And second, And also, I think, you were very dedicated towards the resources needed to provide good outcomes for our kids. And am I right in thinking that we have like 3 grand lists for the 3 towns, but we set we adjust them and set a common tax rate for the district? Is that
That's correct.
how it works?
Yeah.
Because I think it does stabilize available resources and does provide
There is
for a lot of things
consideration.
for kids.
There was a study that was done, and so there's consideration to.
Speak up.
There was a study that was done in the legislature. There's no legislation proposed at this time to allow districts that are working like this to actually form a single grant list. That, of course, is a whole other can of worms. So.
But
Yeah,
yes, so there will be a
that might be too much.
That might be the straw.
Okay, well, thank you.
I just want to answer you, Paul. So yes, there is 3 representatives from Marlboro that are elected to the unified board if it goes through, as there are 3 representatives from Wardsboro and 3 representatives from Dover. So there will be equal representation from all 3 towns.
And we pool the assessments and.
Yes, and
pool
then,
the-
yeah, so then it becomes 1 tax rate for all 3 towns, 1 education tax rate for all 3 towns.
Yeah, that's not the town tax rate.
Right, right.
Yes, no, John, you had a chance already, let's get back to it.
Okay, so this is our tax question section. So we're saying, okay, maybe the taxes are going to go down a small amount depending on your property value for 4 years. So looking 4 years from now, I really question that we're actually going to save any money at all. Aren't there tons of unknown expenses with merging, like busing kids around? The fact that we're going to share buses, we will no longer have a separate Marlboro bus. We do tons of field trips right now, which in order to do that, we would have to make some sort of, I'm sure we'd be sharing buses. And it wouldn't be like, I think right now we can be like, okay, we're going to go on a field trip, tomorrow we'll get the bus. And if the junior high closes, which means we'll suddenly only have a kindergarten through 6th grade, won't property taxes, not property taxes, but property values go down?
Well, there are a lot of speculative questions there, but who wants to take any of them? Okay.
Dover, which doesn't have a 7th and 8th grade, offers choice. And we've seen an influx of people buying property and moving to town because of that choice. So, again, every town is different. I can only speak from the example that I've seen in Dover. I don't think that would be the case, that your property values would go down. And in fact, you might get more people moving because, hey, I don't like living in Brattleboro, like you said, I'm going to move to Marlboro, and then I can send my kid to Twin Valley, or I can send my kid to the grammar school for middle school. So that could be a plus, not a negative. Yeah, as far as expenses go, I mean, it's always a crapshoot. One thing would be assured if you, and I'm going to get these numbers in, Selena, because you wanted me to.
Oh, I don't care.
So, for example, if you had a home that was valued at $100,000 under the current tax rate, under the current tax rate of $1.71, you're paying $1,700 and change in taxes right now in Marlboro. If the merger went through and expenses were relatively equal in terms of affecting your tax rate, the rate with the merger would go down to $1.53, and your property taxes for that year would go down to $1,530. So there would be some tax savings. Yes, of course, it's going to be short term because
After the 4 years?
I don't have that for after the 4 years. Obviously, that would be affected because of the 8, 6, 4, and 2. But right now, and I don't want to get too far afield with this, but if you go look at the study, and particularly the articles and the recommendations to the state, your current tax rate right now is $1.73, or at least that was the last numbers we had. Taking all the expenses for the current year and putting that together with the incentives on the unified rate, it would go down by 20 cents. So you would see some savings. And that's including the 8 cents carrot.
Yeah, when you, just to clarify, nobody's saying that there's any guarantee about anything after 4 years. And I think anybody that thinks education is going to get cheaper in the future
That's kind of.
That's not really what Act 46 is about. All right. We had money questions there, but we got one more there, and then we got to move on because we've got another section, don't we?
Yes.
Stephen, can I just follow up quickly on what Randy just said?
All right.
Because I just feel like these numbers are coming based on what we're all spending in the 3 towns right now.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if we're all one district, we all have to align our budgets. So Marlboro, who has 175 teacher days, is paying a lot less teacher days than Dover or Wardsboro. So once we merge, those expenses are going to do this, and you can't tell this audience that their tax rate's going to go down to 153. I just think that's disingenuous.
No, that's only based on the current numbers. It's
Right.
speculative, of
But as
course.
soon as we merge, then we have to take into account the 3 separate budgets becoming one budget.
Of course,
and
but
the
I'll give you
effects of
this, and you and I have had this discussion before. Wardsboro and Dover already have a lower tax rate with a longer, with more teacher days. So I'm not sure that that argument holds water. You would have to look at it under the new district and see how it really worked. And then the new district would have to decide the length of the school year.
That's what has to do with programming. That's a whole other piece.
Okay. I think we've got time for one more in this section.
I think we need a point of clarification. People are talking about lots of transportation costs. Why would transportation costs go up? I don't think they go up. We're staying here. We're not, kids aren't taking buses to Wardsboro. Kids aren't taking buses to Dover.
We have to transport them for junior high. We have to pay for that.
Well, that isn't what,
Well, okay, let's have somebody in the committee answer here.
One of the things with Lauren's point and Randy, remember, this is all speculative. Again, we don't know what this new district's going to look like until the new board starts to look at things like the transportation. You know, we keep hearing Marlboro's got 2 buses. Well, so does Dover. You know, and Wardsboro doesn't need them because they participate with Windham Central. And technically, 2 or 3 years ago when the special ed thing and all the special educators came out of Windham Central, so was transportation. Stephen's been able to write us, when he was superintendent, or hopefully our new superintendent will get it, a petition, a waiver from the state of Vermont saying that we can still run our own buses. Technically, we're not supposed to own our own buses. So we really don't know what all this is going to be. We don't know what transportation is going to be needed. We don't know what the budget's going to be. The budget might double, and your tax rate may go up 10 cents. We don't know. The numbers we're using are just saying that if nothing else changed, and here's your tax rate now, and we use those same numbers, you get 8 cents off, and that means it's going to be lower. And then we hope that there's some economy and some savings in the future, but we never said that Act 46 was all about saving money or large sums of money. It's about maybe offering more opportunity. So maybe there's that child that's going to the Marlboro building right now, and there's only 5 boys in that class, and there's 30 girls, and they say, we need to, you know, my son's not doing well because there's too many girls, and maybe my son wants to go where there's some more boys. And you say, hey, can I bring my child to the Dover? Well, right now you can't do that. But the Dover building has 12 boys and 8 girls, so you know, that's some of the things that this does allow. And I can't predict the future. I go to town meeting every year for 25 years almost now, and I say, you can ask anybody from Dover, they say, did you budget enough for oil? Have no clue. That's a year and a half out. We're making our budget in December. That's going to take effect a year and a half away. I have no clue what oil is going to do. If I knew what oil was going to do, I could predict it. You'd think I'd be here. I'd be making millions on the futures market. There's not a person in this room that can predict what this new structure is going to look like. Is it going to be better or worse? I would hope it would be better because it's the same people. But that's the problem with this, is we couldn't be specific. And we are asking for some faith that you folks would give to the people that you elect to this new group. And we would hope that you consider it seriously. We're not saying it's a great thing, it's the greatest thing. We're not saying it's a bad thing. We're just trying to give you what facts we could come up with.
One last question. I know you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay, hopefully this will be quick. There was a thing in the slide about that the new unified district would be in charge of hiring teachers for all 3 buildings. Does that mean that teachers then would be transferred from building to building year to year, just depending, like, this year work here, next year work there?
And that makes no sense. Why would you move people around like that? It doesn't do the person any good or the building any good. But what it does do is, all of a sudden, in Dover, we used to have accidental groupings. You know, because, well, the 4th and 5th grade, 4th has 5 kids and 5th has 8 kids, so we're going to have a combination 4-5 this year. Well, I said, we can't be keeping doing this, because eventually this 1st grade and the 6th grade are going to be your 2 smallest grades, and that's going to be a really tough grade to teach, wouldn't it? A 1st and 6th combination. But what this does allow is, hey, look, you know, we had a teacher in 5th grade, a teacher in 6th grade in the Wardsboro building. Well, we only have 6 students now. Instead of laying that teacher off, you know, the Marlboro building all of a sudden has 50 students in those 2 grades. Let's split that class, and now instead of having to hire a new teacher, that teacher could move over. Or a teacher maybe has a real specialty in something. It allows the flexibility to move that staff around, and that's what that does. But that's a decision by the administrators and the supervisory union. That's not a board decision. Boards don't place people in buildings.
We do the hiring.
The board, no. Again, the state changed the rules a few years ago, and staff is hired by the administration and with the blessing of the board. The board doesn't pick and choose. The administration is to present a candidate to the board, and the board can either say yes or no.
But, okay, so just very quick, just to be really clear. So when you say staff then makes the hiring, that's the staff of
No,
this?
the administration does the hiring of the staff.
So the administration of the new unified district?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to cut off the questions and try to get this last section in here, and keep writing your questions down so we can get them answered, you know, virtually, if not live tonight.
All right, so this, I don't know what I just did that made it go sideways, but there we go. So this is just kind of a little bit about our process if all three towns vote yes. As Paul brought up earlier, what is the board membership going to look like? There will be equal representation from all 3 towns, 3 from Marlboro, 3 from Dover, 3 from Wardsboro. On the ballot at town meeting, on one side of the ballot, it has boxes for you to choose who you want to be your representatives to a merged board. Even if you are voting no for the merger, vote for board members. Let's see. So basically, what's the time frame? So
I think there was some question about that. You understand the logic behind that? No. If you vote no, it doesn't mean the proposition is defeated. There may be other people who vote yes.
Right.
So you don't want to give up your
You don't want to give
franchise, you know, so you, even if you vote no, please be prepared to vote for the candidates running for the office to hold those 3 positions on that board.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, that is very true. So town meeting is on March 8th. So town meeting is on March 7th. On March 8th, if the towns vote yes, the new board can start work basically on March 8th. Probably won't exactly happen on March 8th. There needs to be a process where they get, you know, all squared away with the supervisory union. The superintendent has a whole process for enacting boards. So it'll be around just after town meeting day. And then the 2 years following that, the new unified board will be working towards policies and procedures and what the new, in partnership with the principals from all 3 buildings. Basically, it's going to operate kind of how the board operates now. Right now, our Marlboro School Board works in partnership with Francie and Gail to create budgets, to create what, you know, projecting for the next year. What is it the school needs? Oh, the school needs new windows. Okay, how are we going to work that into our capital improvement budget? So on and so forth. So in partnership with the principals from Marlboro, Wardsboro, and Dover, we will be working together to create one unified budget. And so that will be happening over the next 2 years. The 2 years leading up to that, the school boards, as they currently operate now, will still operate the schools individually. So until July 1st, 2019, Marlboro School Board will operate Marlboro School Board, Dover School Board will operate Dover School, so on and so forth. And some of the things that we will have to consider is, you know, transportation, procedures, contractual agreements, as well as how to vote. So the first vote is required, Act 46 requires first vote of the budget to happen by Australian ballot. Sorry, I don't know how to. make it not go to sleep, but. So we have to vote by Australian ballot for the first budget, starting operation July 1, 2019. After that, the board will decide if we're going to continue to have that Australian ballot budget vote, or if we're going to go back to floor vote. As I think Randy explained earlier, it'll be, if we go back to floor vote, it would have to still be one location, all three. So you can't have individual town meeting votes like we have right now, school district meetings, thank you. So what happens if Marlboro votes no and Dover and Wardsboro vote yes? Dover and Wardsboro could potentially move forward with a merger. There is an option for alternative structures. We hear a lot about that. They could potentially petition the Agency of Education to operate as a two-school unification. Also, Marlboro can submit a petition for their alternative structure to the Agency of Education. They have to do that by November 2017. There is also, after further exploration, if the Alternative Structure Committee deems it, whatever they figure out, we have 1 year to rejoin the Dover-Wardsboro Committee, if it looks like we want to do that. If Dover votes no and Wardsboro and Marlboro vote yes, the merger fails. Basically what's happening here is, of the three towns, Dover and Wardsboro are considered necessary for the merger to go through. Marlboro is considered advisable. We chose to do it that way because Marlboro has a larger question to ask around the junior high question, so we decided that we were advisable to the situation rather than necessary for a merger to go through. Because we didn't want to say, we didn't want to tie Dover and Wardsboro to not being able to move forward if their towns voted yes. So same thing, if Wardsboro votes no, Marlboro, Dover vote yes, merger fails, so on and so forth. Towns can always have a revote. There is a certain amount of the population, I believe it's 5% of the population, can say, we want to revote, we want to do this again. That can happen. It's currently happening right now in Dummerston, around Vernon. There's a whole scenario there with Vernon's trying to get out of their Union High School district. Dummerston voted no, so they're not allowed out. So there's a revote happening in Dummerston to see if Vernon can be allowed out of the Union High School district there. Also, these are all contingent upon Leland and Gray voting yes. It's called a side-by-side. There's so many weird acronyms and things. So one of them being a MUD. Is that good or what? So we are studying to be a side-by-side. So we are this would be a K-6 with choice who would partner with a K-12 Union High School district, which is the Leland and Gray group. Leland and Gray needs to vote yes in order for us to operate as well. So even if all three of our towns say yes and Leland and Gray says no, then we don't have a side to be a side. We don't have another side or side by side. So there's a whole other, yeah. It's so confusing. Yeah. I mean, there's other options.
We're gonna find a new dance partner.
Yeah, find some dance partners. It's exactly what it is. I got a card right here. There also, I mean, if Leland and Gray votes no, there is a potential for, and our three towns vote yes, there is a potential for our three towns to then move forward with an alternative structure thing. Again, petition to the Agency of Education and say, look, we did a lot of work. We really think that this is going to be the best ticket for our towns. We want to move forward. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but there is a lot of unknowns still. And just referring back to resources for further questions.
Okay.
And we're running out of time.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes.
A really short question.
Quick one.
And if everyone voted yes and the merger happened and 8 years from now it really wasn't working, then what's the recourse of towns?
I don't have
That's it's in statute now. I don't know if you folks are familiar with what happened in Jamaica, but Jamaica voted to join a union district with Leland and Gray back in the early 70s, late 60s. And then they wanted to get out because they wanted to have school choice for secondary. And so what has to happen is the town has to vote to withdraw. So you folks can in 8 years have a vote to withdraw. And then if that vote is in the affirmative, then the rest of the district has to vote to let you out. There is some talk in the legislature that would change that to maybe have that if the town votes to get out, that be allowed. because of things is to allow, more movement or to allow people to join with other people. It may be easier.
That's not law.
No,
No.
he's referring to the present
Law.
law about withdrawing from a union district.
What you just described, then the legislature is thinking about
No,
changing.
they're changing it to that the other towns don't have to vote to let them out if a town to make it easier for towns to get out. And I don't,
They're thinking about it.
right.
It's not the law.
No, I said they are considering or thinking.
Okay, yep.
When we vote for members, school board members, are we voting for only the people in Marlboro, or?
Yeah.
We are, okay.
Yeah. Also, you keep in mind, you're voting for two different sets of boards too, right?
This year.
This year and next year.
And next year, yeah.
For 2 years, if this goes through.
No, we
Voting for
won't.
representatives too.
Because of us putting our vote off, it's really a little screwy. So you're going to vote for 2, 3, and 4 year on the joint board. So there won't be a
You
vote
won't
for.
have to re-vote that.
Right, you won't revote the joint board until 2 years down the road. But you still have to vote your regular board in for the next 2 years.
Our local Marlboro school board candidates. Okay, we got, time flies, but we'll take one back here, Jan.
I'm Suzanne Whitehouse. I live on South Road, and I have a question about, and this, again, nobody's got a crystal ball, but it sounds like there are the potential to be having to make a lot of administrative decisions between the 3 schools, between the 3 buildings. And so I guess my question is, and this is the job of the next school board if the merger goes through, might part of that also be to hire an administrator who would be overseeing all of that work as well? Was that clear to anybody?
That would be, so you're going to have a new board that's going to meet. So let's just say this all goes through in Leland and Gray and everything's great. So this new group is going to get together and they're going to have a public meeting, just like your school board does now. And at those meetings, you folks will come in and you'll get to give your opinion, your thoughts, and say the first thing they do is they're going to discuss how to do transportation. They're not going to do it in a bubble. There's no mandate. They're going to come together and they're going to say, okay, this is what we think we need for transportation. They're going to get input from the administration, from the supervisory union, from the parents, from all the people, and they'll make a decision. And that's how this new structure will operate. They'll get together, they'll have discussions in public meetings, warned meetings. They may even videotape them, or if Andy's still videotaping, and then you'll be able to put your input in, and the new board will decide.
So there's no possibility that we could end up with another level of administration?
Oh, no.
Right, okay, so we're not adding another layer. And
Yeah.
we still remain part of
Yeah,
Windham Central?
well, you're still part of Windham Central, you still have a superintendent, and then you have whatever structure you have in your news group.
Okay, well, I really think that you put in a lot of time sitting here. The tea and the crumpets are ready. I know Paul's dying to ask another question, but there's town meeting. I also want to urge you to how many would be interested in continuing and devoting a part of the pre-town meeting to some exchange and debate or further information on this. I have something to say about the pre-town meeting, so I will advise the select board accordingly. So show your hands if you are, now that would be the Tuesdays before town meeting, okay? Because we want to know how many people, because we've got to figure out, where the location would be. I think presently it's warned for, or set up for the townhouse, which I think would accommodate this group fine, but we'll see who else comes. Okay, thank you very much.
I just also want to let everyone know that after about a 5-10 minute break, the alternative structure committee is going to talk about what happens if we do vote no. And we also are pretty well informed on all the incredibly hard work that these guys have been doing. So if you have further questions for them that don't get answered while you're getting tea and crumpets, we might be able to help with that too.
No one should go away.
Steve,
Be satisfied.
there's only like 3 people, and we started like 10 minutes late, so we can give them a couple more minutes if it's okay with you.
I just think that it's going to be a really long
Okay,
night. We
the
have a
merger has,
presentation ahead.
and there have been previous opportunities, and the information is available online. I do encourage you to talk to your friends and neighbors, and actually consult with any people, and we might have some confidence about their opinion. I certainly, if I'm elected town moderator at the meeting, once again this year, I certainly will encourage and expect that there'll be considerable debate. Because the issue. However, keep in mind that on the day of town meeting is the day of the vote. And as long as we're far enough away, we should not be.
And it's a ballot vote.
It's a ballot issue. It isn't
So-
something that's going to be voted from the floor. This is all by ballot.
So we can't discuss it at town meeting?
Yes, you
Well,
can.
I think you can. I'll inquire about that. I
No,
think
you
this
can.
particular issue can't be discussed. You can't debate between candidates.
Right.
But there's a lot of info on the back
But it is
table,
an
there's a
article.
lot of info on their blog. There's many opportunities to get well-informed between now and the vote.
Jonathan, I reassure you that it is an article of consideration. See, that's why it's debatable at the meeting. Just like the budget is. If you had a town that voted with budget ballot by ballot, you'd still be able to discuss the article of approving that budget at the meeting.
All right, so I highly encourage you to bear with us a little longer, have some tea, take a break, go to the bathroom if you need to, and then come back and we'll have a lively conversation.
I also encourage you to reach out. If you have questions, please go to the website, ask a question. If you want to email me. If you want to call me. If you want to,
Bring up the question.
Yes, bring me your questions.
Doug, you have something to say?
Reach out.
Yeah, I just wanted to address everybody really quickly, just as the school board chair. These guys, we have a lot of talk about Act 46. I know a lot about it too, but these guys have worked really hard to do what the state is calling phase 2 of Act 46. This isn't Act 46, this decision. There are several pieces to it. So just so you understand that, but these people are basically the messengers of that. So they work really hard, and I think that they do.